Hey, good morning. Guolanti and Dubreucho and Yuragel Kivanuk. Welcome to That's Life with Evolution. I am your host, Evolution, and I have Shank with me this morning. What's up, Sean? How you doing?
I'm doing all right, my friend. How are you?
Oh man, I'm doing great. I'm excited to have you here today. Thanks for the last notice. I appreciate it. Or thanks for coming on at the last minute.
Yeah, no problem, my friend.
Yeah, man. So for the people who don't know you, they should by now. But if they don't, uh, could you let them know who you are and what's going on with you lately?
Oh, sir, I'm a mystery wrapped in a quandary steeped in enigmas. That's what I am. Um, well, okay. So I have a couple podcasts on the JG Network,
Mhm,
Blurred Lines and Shawshank Redemption podcast. But outside of
mhm.
that, I'm a college professor, a comedian, author, uh, family man, hedgehog owner. Uh, done many things. It was actually kind of interesting because, and your intro has changed even since the last time I was on here. Very cool, man.
Thank you.
Well, here's what was neat though, as I'm watching the different things kind of tick by,
Hmm.
and the name is That's Life. I'm looking at the
Hmm.
different things. I'm like, okay, so I've done that. I've done that. I've done that. It was kind of neat, and as more of them tick by, and I'm just like, I'm old. Hey, I have lived a lot of life apparently, because god dang, dude.
Well, that's the point, and that's kind of the that's life. That's what that's life is all about. The
Right?
things that we've all pretty much gone through or experiencing now, or maybe soon in the future we'll be dealing with that type of stuff. Give us a little bit more on blurred lines. That's something new that you got going on. What's that all about?
Okay. Well, blurred lines. I've said this before, but blurred lines was an inevitability,
Mm,
and it's funny how it came about. But at its most basic description, it is a podcast about conspiracy theories,
mm,
and um, I, some people look at conspiracy theorists and think, those people are nuts, so they just want to cause trouble, or they're rednecks living in trailers. Now, I will say I am a redneck. I have lived in a trailer more than once, but I'm also getting my PhD right now.
there
So,
you go. There you go.
if I'm looking at stuff, it's through the eyes of redneck excellence. All right. Um,
Okay.
But I'm not so much a conspiracy theorist as I am somebody that connects the dots. And the reason I would say I'm a conspiracy theorist is because I have a deep sense of wanting justice in the world. And
Hmm.
when I see people doing things that, um, f- you know, uh, flies in the face of justice, hurts people, takes advantage of people, people lose their lives, then I point at those things and go, "This was wrong."
Hmm.
And you're doing it because you want power, you want money, you want to get away with something, and so that's what the podcast is about. And the thing is, it's not to you know wave my shake my fist in somebody's face. It's more of educating folks. And
Hmm.
if I can put something out there that even makes you go, hmm, just
Uh-huh.
for a second, then hey, I've won because I made you think. So that's what
There
it
you
is.
go. Nice. I'm looking forward to that, man. It sounds incredible. Uh, like everything else that you do.
Thank you.
um, so I'd like to thank the people that are tuning in already. Appreciate you uh, tuning in kind of early this morning. It's always a pleasure to have you viewing as we record this, and I'll open up the comments here in a second. Um, but I'm gonna go ahead and highlight the sponsors for today. JG's Lounge. TGBTG, Golden Diamond Productions, Leia's Question, and Vibe. VYV, it comes in a little vial. You shake it and sniff it, and it gets you going thought wise. I could probably use a little of that now, but I'm good. And
Yeah.
that's Lucian 15. If you want to support, get a little discount. LUTION 15. And today's topic is sabotage. Um, so we're gonna get into our topic like we always do with last question, and then we'll get it going. So, last question for today is, why do people feel that they need to sabotage others? Just off of last question and the topic, Sean, do you have anything on that?
Well, I'll tell you what I have right now. I don't know if you did this on purpose, but your camera froze up as you started to say sabotage.
Uh
And
huh.
I was sitting here going, all right, did he do this on purpose? Because if so, that was brilliant.
Well, I guess timing is everything.
I'm telling you, brother. All right. What do say? What are my thoughts on people that sabotage or self sabotage?
Actually, both.
Oh my goodness. Well, there's a lot of deep psychology behind both of those things,
Mhm.
and um, you could say mutually exclusive, but at the same time, the psychology might touch on itself. But self sabotage is kind of this insidious little thing that we do to ourselves because you've heard that old saying of like fear of success.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, people, and it's weird, and I think it's this goes back to God. This is such a deep subject. This is weird. Um, Going back to our lizard brains, and when I say lizard brain, I'm talking about our operating systems from a long time ago, where
Mhm.
things were out there in the dark trying to kill us, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Fight or flight, that kind of thing. And our brains are wired towards negativity. Okay,
Mm.
a good example of this, I have seen these things on social media where it says, what's a comic that you don't think, or who's a comic that you don't think is funny, and they have over 1 million comments,
Wow.
over 1 million of people saying, "I hate this. I hate." People are so wired towards negativity, uh, much more than positivity because of society, because of our brain, because we're looking for danger. It's easier to go to the negative, right?
Wow. Mhm.
So that kind of touches on sabotaging others, sabotaging oneself.
Mhm.
And so since we have a natural bend towards that sort of negativity, it is hard for us to see success, and we can't imagine ourselves in success, and we can't
Mm.
imagine ourselves in a place, and it's funny because it is almost earth shattering when you look at somebody and go, actually, hold on, with your mindset, what if it does work out? What if
Mhm.
it is good? What if it turns out to be better than you could have ever possibly imagined?
Right.
And you see them kind of go, oh, like I they never thought of it that way.
Mhm.
So I think because of our internal judge, and actually this is something I teach in my writing classes. There are four kind of personalities that live up in your head when it comes to dealing with life. The two that I
Mhm.
focus on are the judge and the mad person. The
Mhm.
mad person is like that little kid that was inside of you. When you're little, you remember when you were a kid and you would roll down a hill.
Mhm.
You would get up and you're like, yeah, you run up to the top of the hill, you do it over and over again, and
Mhm.
maybe you'd stop and taste some honeysuckle, and you'd stare at a bee for a minute. That's the mad person, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
The judge is far more insidious. And I always tell people, just picture yourself with a curly black mustache going, right? But always
Yeah.
waiting there to just nitpick everything to death. That's the one that tells you that you will fail, that
Mm,
it's no good. You should just give up. You shouldn't start a podcast. You shouldn't go on stage. You shouldn't go to the boss and say, hey, I deserve a raise, because they're just
wow.
going to say no anyway.
Wow.
And but here's the thing, you'll hear some of these life coaches like, man, you need to get rid of that negative voice. No, the hell you don't. The judge is very useful.
Hmm.
Judge is there for a reason, but the judge is a timing issue. All right.
Exactly. Exactly.
Take the judge, do the creating, do the thing, do all the things that you want to do, right?
Hmm.
But have the judge at the end of the creation. Have the judge to be the stopgap between you and the world, taking a look at your work. When you're writing is a perfect example. Do all the writing. Don't give a shit about grammar, any of it, and just get it all out. And once you're exhausted, you've let the mad person go. Then
Hmm.
it and look at the judge and go, all right, bro, get at it. And the judge will just cut through everything, but the judge will make everything better. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So um, I would say that self sabotage is a lot of that. It's a lot of imposter syndrome, which
Mm,
I'm sure you've heard of. Um, you know, and imposter syndrome is just, it's funny because it doesn't matter what level you're at. People, unless they're just a psychopath,
mm-hmm.
um, deal with that a lot. I shouldn't be here. It's like, no, you were meant to be here from the beginning. There's a
Yeah.
reason you're here.
Hmm.
There's a reason you're doing all these great podcasts and everything. You're meant to be here, right?
Right.
Don't ever question that in the world, And I'm talking to
Absolutely.
the crowd right now. You are meant to be here from the beginning. So, grab that gold cup, go do the thing. Now, as far as sabotaging others,
Hmm.
uh, man, that again kind of has some of the same psychology, but I think a lot of it just has to do with insecurity. It
Hmm.
really does.
Hmm.
I think, in the comedy world, I see it a lot where comics will badmouth other comics, try to steal shows from them, you
Wow.
know, all that. Oh yeah, it's brutal. And I'm not saying, all comics are bad. That's not the
Hmm.
case. It's like only about 98% of them are bad. But um, but it's a thing where it's just like they feel like they can't do it enough on their own merit,
Hmm.
right? So again, it
Hmm.
goes back to that judge. That
Yeah.
judge says, you can't quite get there, but if you knock this person down a peg, they're out of your way. And then if they're out of your way, that leaves the gap for you just slide right in.
Wow.
Or or just do your best. Be the best
There,
version of yourself that you can be.
there you go. And that's where I hope people will be after they watch our show today. And you said a lot, but it was all meaningful and relevant, and it's right on target with what we are going to be doing today. So that makes you perfect for this episode, like I knew you would be. So
Thanks.
you're welcome. So to answer Leia's question, why do people feel that they need to sabotage others? Uh, the first thing I have here is most people really don't want to change. They would rather just talk about changing, or they would also rather bring the people around them down, which is kind of what you hit on. What are your thoughts on that?
Dude, that's spot on, man. Change
Mm-hmm.
is frightening to most people and they love staying in their comfort zones, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in life, aside from death, the other inevitability is change,
Wow. Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And as far as dragging people down, okay, so I've got a great example of this, and it has to do with narcissists. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Now, I will say this in the world of psychology, and that's actually what I'm getting my doctorate in.
Mm-hmm.
A dyed in the wool actual narcissist is actually kind of rare because that is getting into psychopathy.
Mm-hmm.
But many people have narcissistic tendencies. Okay,
Hmm.
and I have a comic. I won't name her on the cast here, but she's a fantastic improvisational artist, comedian,
Hmm.
um, and for years she had this divine spark in her to do, the arts and express
Hmm.
herself. And if she had been able to chase it in her early 20s, bro, I swear she'd be on SNL right now without
Wow.
question. Right? I
Wow.
mean, she's just that good.
Hmm.
But she had a narcissistic mother who, every time she tried to express herself, the mother would be saying, "You're no good. You can't do that. You shouldn't try." Right?
Wow. Hmm.
Because it takes the like attention off of the mother too. But if this person that came from her goes out and sees this mountaintop and gets there, right,
Hmm. Hmm.
then she's down here hating herself. Do you see how that
Yeah.
transfer to some
Yeah.
people where they're just like, well, they got up here and I'm still down here not succeeding and being pathetic and everything else. So they
Mhm.
they keep them down here so they feel okay about not changing, right?
Wow. Hmm.
And being at the bottom of that mountain instead of, as they're climbing towards the mountain, push them up, get them
Hmm.
up to the top, help them succeed,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
That's what we should all be doing as humans, right?
Right. And even if they are still there, guess what? Their daughter is now successful, so that it will probably, you would think, make their life a little bit better, right?
Exactly. Exactly. I 100% agree. I think
Yeah.
it transfers the negativity and the positivity.
Boom. That's spot on too. Uh, wow. So the next one I have here is when people feel powerless and hopeless in life, uh, they seek to do things to feel more powerful. And even if it's only temporary, people lash out, people act out, and sabotage other people's plans and their happiness. Um, what do you got for that?
Oh man, feeling powerless. Yeah. It's funny because I'm a pretty big dude, right? Um,
Hmm.
so I have been blessed with, walking through life for most of my adult life where people, and I talk about it on stage too, like, man, you're a big dude. I'd never mess with you, blah, 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 blah.
Hmm.
But that wasn't always the case. When we taught in the middle of north central Indiana, even though I was a big guy, I was surrounded by corn-fed Hoosiers who were much bigger than me.
Yeah,
You
they
know,
get pretty big.
oh, dude, even at almost 6 feet and over 200 pounds, all muscle, I was a runt on my football team, right?
Wow.
So I understand. I was bullied severely throughout, I would say almost up until my senior year, because it's hard to fight off, you know, 5 to 6 guys, that are bigger than you beating the shit out of you. I mean,
Right, right.
that's how it was.
Hmm.
So I know what it is to have that feeling of being powerless. So what did I do to snatch that power back
Hmm.
to where I didn't feel powerless and people had to listen to my voice? I stepped behind a microphone,
Hmm. Boom.
you know. I did it honestly for all the wrong reasons. I mean, now when I do stand up, I'm not there for me. I'm there for the people. I'm there to bring
Hmm.
joy.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm in it for the right reasons now. But that, as far as my own personal journey, that's what I did to take back the power, right, and shift that
Right.
balance the other way. And I think people that are marginalized in whatever way look for reasons to get that power back. And sometimes, we take swings at people that don't deserve it in this
Mm-hmm.
world,
Yeah.
saying, you're the reason I'm here. So I'm going to shout and scream at you for whatever reason.
Hmm.
And it most likely misplaced. You know, people, it comes from a place of hurt. And I think one of the things that we miss a lot as humans is that most reactions that have any sort of negativity attached to them don't come from like 95% of the world people in this world I really feel are just decent good people. Like this
Mhm.
contingent of evil is like that much.
Mhm.
Um, and most of the other people that are lashing out because they're hurting. And
Wow.
that's the sad thing.
Mhm.
And trying to figure out how to fix that hurt, I think it's incumbent upon us as humans to do that while we're here as the best we
Mhm.
can.
Yeah, I agree. Something interesting you said in the beginning of your statements is you stepped away from uh, the treatment that your football team was giving you, um, and you grabbed a microphone.
Mhm.
Uh, that's really one of the best ways you can handle that type of treatment is stepping away and finding a way to deal with it or conquer it. And in your case, you did both. So that's an excellent way to do that. And now, like you said, it's not for your own benefit, but it's also helping you probably still, but it's for the benefit of others more than yourself. So uh, my hats off to you for that. That's a great way to handle the scenario and grow from it.
Yeah.
Um, so the next thing I have here is it serves as a coping mechanism that people use to deal with stressful situations and past traumas, which I think you kind of hit on. But can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Um, what the lashing out is what people use to deal with the traumas and whatnot. Is that what you're saying?
Uh, yeah, it serves as a coping mechanism, like when they sabotage others. Um,
Yeah.
and,
Okay. So again, this I love it because again, a lot of this is just dipping into psychology and things,
mhm,
which is my wheelhouse.
mhm,
Um, but you got to think if, say, there was a case where um, somebody got, let's go into the dark a little bit, got
mhm,
touched inappropriately by a loved one, right?
mhm, mhm,
And that person that molested them dies, okay, and passes away.
mhm,
All right. When we have emotion that is out there, and I like to picture emotion, grief, things like that.
mhm,
It's like a plane, okay, that's flying around. And if it has somewhere to land, then it levels out, it gets taken care of, it's done with.
mhm,
But if you take away the capacity for that emotion to land, then it's just sitting there circling with this endless tank of fuel, right?
mhm, right?
And so if you've got that going on, then, you know, this person is just going to continue to lash out because this is still up there just floating around in the ether and they just can't do anything with it.
Mm,
So it is a coping mechanism. People do lash out. They do take, swings uh, at people, whether verbally, physically, emotionally, whatever it is,
mhm,
because if they can get that basically that emotional vomit out there into the world, it makes
mhm,
this not feel as bad just for a moment. But the problem is it perpetuates itself because if, say, I lash out at you for whatever reason, all right,
mhm,
and I
mhm,
feel better for a second. Well, now I've compounded my emotional problems because now I've lashed out at you, and now I shouldn't have done that, and now he's going to hate me, and it just boom, and it just piles it on, and the person
mhm.
goes lower and lower and lower.
Absolutely. Uh, I like the example of the plane circling in the air. It's really on target with what we're talking about, and hopefully that gives people a better idea of where either people around them that are doing this sit, or maybe even themselves. There's only a couple of them out there, maybe just two. Uh, so we'll move on. uh, it contains problems in daily life. I'm sorry. It man, my eyes haven't woken up yet. It creates problems in daily life and interferes with long-standing goals. So basically, the self sabotage that you mentioned earlier, in the form of procrastination or turning to food. What do you got for that?
Oh my God. That's well, okay. So this now you're talking about dipping into things that kick off, endorphins and dopamine and all that other stuff. Because
Hmm.
so food, let's start there because you mentioned food. Food is a powerful addiction, but what makes food scary as an addictive source is, unlike cigarettes, alcohol, drugs, you don't need any of those things to live. You could
Right.
stop them today, your body would go on, but you
Hmm.
can't stop eating because you will die. So
Right.
now people that are addicted to food are faced with this monumental task of regulating this addiction that they have to participate in. Um, but the thing is, when they take that bite of chocolate, when they, drink that soda, when they put that food in their mouth, it releases all kinds of chemicals and everything. It makes you feel good for like a
Hmm.
second, but
Right.
then it goes away. So then you have to do it again. And it's a vicious cycle. And the next thing you know, people are vastly overweight. But just like using any sort of drug or anything else, it just masks what's actually going on. So when
Hmm.
people dip into things like alcoholism and gambling, whatever it is, you
Hmm.
know, it is, again, it always circles back to, you peel away the layers and it's like, what's underneath it? Hurt. It
Boom.
it just
Yeah.
always seems like it comes back to hurt. And now I do not couple my thinking to calling things like alcoholism and gambling addiction and things like that diseases.
Hmm.
I'm very specific. I'm an English professor for two different colleges. I'm very specific about language, and
Hmm.
they have attached the word disease to those conditions
Hmm.
so that it seems like it has much more gravitas. But you know what? I think mislabeling it actually hurts it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
So, these, but again, it goes back to just the self sabotage thing. Yeah, it's self sabotage, but if you look at why it's happening, it's pain. And then you go, okay, well, all right. So you're doing this alcohol thing. Why are you in pain? Why are you doing this?
Hmm.
Why are you overeating? Well, let's see. I'm overeating because when I'm at school, I get the shit kicked out of me and bullied. When I come home, everybody in my house, and this is a personal example, every
Hmm.
one of my family members were literal geniuses. My grandfather could do trigonometry in his head. My
Hmm.
uncle was a literal rocket scientist. I have multiple family members that are in Mensa. So when I would come home and anything that I said that didn't seem like it was genius level intellect, I was either ignored or told I was stupid.
Wow.
One of the things I heard many times growing up is "Don't be dumb." I heard
Wow.
that constantly. So you talk about breeding a complex in a kid. Now I'm going for my doctorate for good reasons, but I will tell
Hmm.
you, when I first started this academic journey, it was, again, just like the microphone thing, to shake my fist in their face and show, you know what, you're dumb. I'm not dumb. I am Dr. Shank. You know what I mean? It's like I'm the first doctor in the family. nuts to you. And but again, that all came from a place of pain. But
Hmm.
through self-reflection, I understand those things now. But people are so busy living in their addictions and living in their hurt and still trying to survive in a world that is out there trying to murder us in a
Right.
variety of ways, that they never get to the point where they stop self sabotaging because they just don't have the time.
Wow. Oh, wow. I want to go back to what you said about how they try to label alcoholism and smoking and things of that nature diseases.
Mhm.
Um, I want to point something out because how can these things be diseases when those things that they do on a regular basis or overuse creates disease?
Isn't that
So,
funny?
yeah, you see what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, I do. Um, okay, right. So smoking, A, therefore B, you smoke, you get cancer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You drink, you get cirrhosis of the liver,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
jaundice, and those are diseases. Okay. You gamble, you get what? I'm sorry, gambling is a disease, but does that give you, I don't know, looseness of the hands? Um, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can say like, yeah, there's correlation, but not causation.
Mm-hmm.
Directly,
Yeah.
um,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. It's tough, but again, I think it just goes back to having truth out there in society in the way we talk about things.
Mm-hmm.
And we are at such a dangerous position in this country right now because we have this assumption that we cannot fall. And if you look
Wow.
at the width and breadth of human history, empires fall all the time. And
Yes, they do.
right. And if you look at the great empires, the Roman Empire, the Egyptian Empire, and yes, they are still around, but their forms are vastly different than what they were.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of the things that started happening before the Great Fall are happening in this country. And one of the ways that they fall is this whole way we treat language and truth. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And if we
Yeah.
keep saying things like, oh no, this is disease, you can't help it. You know what? Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Yes, we can. We can help any of it, but we have to make up our minds to do those things. Now, I am somebody who has, because I let things get to me. And as a kid, you're not super responsible for that stuff. I'll grant you that. But as an
Mm-hmm.
adult, I can choose not to shove the cookie bar down my gullet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, we make those choices, all right? And we can stop whenever we want to.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, we need to give people the tools and the capability to stop those things. And we just don't do it because mental unwellness is one of the greatest epidemics we face right now. And we, choose to look at things like SARS and COVID and AIDS and all these things. Like, yes, those are all terrible. But
Mm-hmm.
if you look at the mental and wellness epidemic that it faces this entire world, nothing touches it.
Mm.
And so many people are just going through the world unhelped, hurt, and broken. I readily admit I'm one of them. Um, you know, but I'm trying to repair the damage.
Copy that. I'm thinking about that plane that's circling in the air when you're saying those things. Um, it's probably going to stick with me for a while. It's a great way to look at it. Um,
Yeah, you know where that comes from?
well,
Uh, a very dear friend of mine recently passed away. His name is Troy
mm,
Davis. He's probably one of the best comedians in this country that a lot of people never knew.
mm,
One of the funniest guys and a sweetheart of a man. And when he passed, his daughter, Coley Reyes, who is also a comedian, very funny,
Mhm.
who was talking about hurt and why is it still hurt? Why is it still hurt? You think
Mhm.
time passes, and I said, look, I said grief is love that just has nowhere to land,
Wow.
and
Wow.
that's kind of what generated this whole psychology of the playing the visual, because it helps folks understand those kind of things. So yeah.
Yeah, man, that's great. Wow. Um, so my next one here is it is a means to make their reality align with their inner beliefs. In other words, low self-esteem. Um,
Yeah,
what you got? I hear you laughing. What are your thoughts?
because you're right, dude. I mean, my God, if you believe, okay, man, this is tight, and I love this. Okay, because
Mhm.
people, there's this whole thing out there, and I subscribe to this theory and thought process of you basically create the reality that you see
Mhm.
down the road. Okay. And when they talk about manifestation, that's what the whole thing is called. And, if you get into the deeper ideas of, that we're actually part of this universe and we create our realities.
Mhm.
And frankly, I would say it's true, because if you look at things like the double slit experiment, when we observe matter, it changes. It actually, we physically impact things just by focusing on them. All
Wow.
right. They've
Mhm.
proven it scientifically.
Mhm.
And for the folks out there that are listening to this or will listen to this, check out the double slit experiment. You'll see what I'm talking about. All right. There's a lot of, mumbo jumbo jargon, but essentially it breaks down to the fact that if we look at a thing, it changes how it reacts on a molecular level. Okay.
Hmm. Okay.
So when they talk about manifestation, they say the big key to that is you do not sit there and go, oh, I'm going to be married to the most beautiful woman in the world. You say, I am married to the most beautiful woman in the world. And you live mentally in like the emotions of it, in the belief, not the knowledge of it, not just the belief. Belief is a
Mhm.
scary thing.
Mhm.
And I've tried to, because again, with definition of words, if you believe, I believe it's going to happen. I believe that means there is a scintilla, however small, that it's
Mhm.
not true. So you have to
Right.
believe. No, that's different. You know something,
Mhm.
bro, it's done. It's
Yeah.
done. So if you manifest like, I know I am married and I live like it. So what happens is when you have a knowledge in your head, you start to do things in your life that will lead you towards that thing, but whether it be positive or negative, right? So
Right.
if I know for a fact, right, that like today when I wake up, I knew this was going to be a good cast. I knew it. I've done this with you before. You're a
Mhm.
great host. I knew it was going to be great. I had no doubts about it.
Thank
It
you.
doesn't matter that it's at 1 o'clock in the morning. Um, but you know what I mean. But
Yeah.
the conversely, if I know that I'm a failure, if I know that stuff's just not going to work out,
Mhm.
dude, the universe listens and you listen.
Mhm.
You know, there's this old quote by Bruce Lee, and I know I'm going to butcher the hell out of it, but he basically says, "Be careful what you say about yourself, because words are like magic, and when you
Mm.
say those things, you that's why it's called spelling, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Because if you say I'm a failure, guess what? You
Wow.
become the thing that you say. So if you say, I am a winner, this will win. Even if if you say, I'm a winner and today's going to be awesome, and everything goes to hell, if your perspective is looking for the good that comes out of any of that
Mhm.
moment, even as negative as it could possibly be,
Mhm.
then it becomes a positive, and then your life starts arcing towards that positive. And it
Wow.
literally is just your perspective and your knowledge of the thing. So you, through your mental focus,
Hmm.
create the world that you're in. If it's always negative, it's always negative. If
Boom.
you see, like the thing that's a big divisive issue right now, race. If you see
Hmm.
white people as all bad, guess what? They're all bad. If you see Chinese people as all bad, guess what? There's not a Chinese person in this world that's going to do anything that's going to make you happy.
Wow.
That's
That
how it
that's
works.
that's powerful. Um, I want to go back to the Bruce Lee quote, and how the play on words, when you basically what you say. That's why it's called spelling. You're basically casting a spell on yourself if you go the negative route.
Yes, sir.
Uh, and also, I guess if you go positive, it's the same in the other direction. Um,
Right.
yeah, man, that's excellent. I'm sure a lot of people haven't even thought about looking at things that way, but the mind works that like that. You know what I'm saying? Uh,
Right.
whatever your thought process is, whatever you think, whatever you believe, whatever you say, that's how the rest of you, your body and emotions and all that is going to follow through.
Right.
So yeah, we need to
100%,
break.
man.
Yeah, we need to break that type of mentality and that way of looking at stuff, so that we can make things better. Because what we're really seeing right now is all this type of negativity is people just holding themselves back or keeping the hurt inside.
Yes.
All right. So the next one here is it's a defense mechanism. Uh, they mess up intentionally to feel they are in control of the failure, or uh, it is just shoot, man, my eyes. Uh, it's just an expected flaw. I
Hmm.
need to have my glasses on in their character. Uh, that right there makes me shake my head. What do you got for that, Sean?
Well, that's called affirmation
Mm-hmm.
or confirmation bias in a way,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if I live this idea that I'm terrible and everything's always going to go wrong, and then something goes wrong, then I can go, ha ha, I said it would go wrong. You know, it's just like I've got a buddy of mine. Um, he's a comic, and he has this refrain where it's become a joke in our little circle, where he's like, the whole world's against me,
Mm-hmm.
and anything that happens that is negative, he points at it and he's like, there you go, I told you. It's
Uh-huh.
um and it's like, yes, if you look for the things to be negative and then it happens and it reaffirms it. I mean, one, it's crazy because you get this little shot of the good chemicals in your body, because whenever you have affirmation,
Mm-hmm.
like, if I tell you, like, dude, I like your hat, it's a cool hat that you got, right?
Uh-huh.
And I mean it sincerely. Yeah, see, it makes you smile, makes you happy a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you get that good shot of chemicals and everything. You still get very close to the same reaction internally, emotionally, and with the physiology of it.
Mm-hmm.
If something bad happens and you're like, I knew it. So you get that confirmation. You still get that little joy feeling because it's like, I was right. And people love to be right.
Boy.
Oh my God, look at the landscape of this country on the news, people screaming at each other. They
Mm.
all want to be right instead of being correct. And there is a massive difference.
Huge difference. Wow. Um, Man, that you got some great remarks here.
Thanks, man.
Hopefully, everybody that's listening now or later are picking up on what's going down. Uh, the next one I have here, when it comes to sabotage, the lack of belief, which we kind of hit on, in oneself. Uh, Negative self-talk is kind of what we hit on.
Mhm.
And I have something here that I've heard before when people say nothing like that ever happens to me. You know, you like that, huh?
Yeah.
Well, what you got for that, Sean?
Well, it's funny. And again, this kind of goes back to that whole thing of, you know, if you speak positively and know positively, then you just naturally do things in your life that lead towards those positive
Mm-hmm.
outcomes. So that never happens to me becomes things that happen to you. All right. Now, when I was a young comic and coming up and thinking, I was pretty good and everything else, and I
Mm-hmm.
would see comics headlining comedy clubs, and I would see comics, headlining theaters and things, and it was just like, that's never going to happen for me. That never happens for me. That's another stratosphere. Well,
Mm-hmm.
now I headline clubs and I headline theaters, and
Right.
it was just time plus effort plus knowing that I belong here,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that, you know, there isn't, at a show when it's like I'm the final guy, knowing that, oh, this all rests on me. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you can think negative things, and for the longest time I was had a mindset there, but when I switched my mindset to one of, you know what, I'm just going to put the work in, I'm going to lean into this, and I'm just going to get better, and I put the onus on myself, well, then it became a situation where it's like, well, shit, I've got a lot of gaps I got to fill, and
Mm,
once I
okay.
started filling those gaps,
Mm-hmm.
things changed, right?
Boom. Yeah, absolutely. It's got to change. You know,
Yeah.
you're filling the gap. So no more holes.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Absolutely.
Oh man, I really love where this is going. This is going to take a turn here, but
Mm.
it's on purpose. Uh, Sabotage in relationships. Uh, People engage in behaviors either consciously or unconsciously uh, that lead to the end of the relationship. Things like pushing the other person away or looking for reasons to get out of the relationship. Um, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, um, there are a lot of things that lead to the sabotage in relationships. One is you've had so much hurt in the past that you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter how good the situation is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that you are just waiting for it to happen. So you're going to start doing things that will either lead to the downfall of the relationship, or you're going to start seeing things that will lead to the downfall of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You'll start fights for no reason, things like that. Or the other thing is people just not being honest with themselves. And this is the toughest one to deal with. Hurt is understandable.
Mm-hmm.
Hurt makes sense. Hurt comes from a place we can all understand, and lashing out defensively just so you can end it before they end it with you, and the hurt is lessened somehow.
Uh-huh.
But you did it, regardless. So the hurt's still there again, but it's that layering of hurt on top of hurt and the, later stuff. But the one that's scary, I think, is when the relationship should be over,
Mm-hmm.
and you see the things that you're just like, this is not my forever person. This is, and whatever it may be. And it could be a perfectly honest thing. You
Mm-hmm.
just don't gel with a person, or you've grown apart, and there's no way to get it back together,
Right.
you know, but you just don't want to believe it, but you start doing little things that sabotage it so that it will happen anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of having this thing where you guys just come together and go, look, dude, nice run, fist bumpies. It's been 8 years. You good? Yeah. You good? Yeah. And you just separate. And yeah, there's pain, but at least it's clean and it's honest.
Right.
But instead of doing it that way, then people will do little things to sabotage and trip up and break the other person to the point where they're just like, I can't do this anymore. And it's ugly and it's gross.
Hmm.
And it's much more painful.
Yeah.
And it still ends up with the same result. So they can't be honest. So it leads to pain. So that's where I
Well,
think the sabotage comes in, because they can't just, and it's tough to be honest with the other person and say, look, dude, let's just be done.
yeah. Yeah. And then, in those cases it's tough because maybe the other person wants to hang on and try to make it work. Uh and that creates a whole nother uh avenue of things that may turn, it may turn into, but yeah, I've seen that happen as well.
Yeah.
Somebody, they were trying to be upfront and honest about it, but then the other person was like, well, no, let's try to work this out. Let's do this, let's do that. And once you get to that point where it's just not gonna go anywhere,
Hmm.
it's pretty much done.
It,
You
amen.
try to do all you can before that point, but once you get to that point, you're just wasting time and building hurt, like you said.
Yeah.
Um, so from that relationships type of stuff, these are the things that people do to kind of help sabotage the relationship. So the first one I have here is no communicating, um, holding grudges, um, refusing to commit, and the dagger here is overthinking.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
searching for hidden meanings, personalizing a behavior, developing false narratives, uh, basically driving the life out of the relationship. What do you got on that, Sean?
well, I mean, every one of those things you just mentioned, you could do a whole podcast on, my friend. Let's be
Note.
honest. Like, you talk about overthinking. So here's an interesting thing that happens with people that have suffered a lot of trauma early on in their lives. They talk about, you've heard the word empath, I'm sure.
Mhm.
And now I do believe in psychic abilities and things of that nature. But
Mhm.
that being said, I also recognize that um, people that have suffered trauma as children, they become empaths, and I use that word loosely in this sense because they become hyper aware of energy and emotional fluctuations and body language.
Mhm.
Any slightest switch in a facial tick, anything, and I'm one of them
Mhm.
because I grew up with, in environments where if you didn't pay attention to the switches and the energy in the room,
Mhm.
if you weren't watching, next thing you know, you had five people beating the shit out of you, you know.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you watch, you listen for fluctuations and voices and everything else. So you come out of your childhood with that hyper awareness and you get into a relationship, and that overthinking is it's a protection. That is a
Wow.
self-preservation technique that people have. And it could say, like, it's like that funny meme where the girl is laying in bed with a guy and she's facing away and she just looks upset, and she, you see the thought bubble, he's probably thinking about other women. His thought bubble is, well, if I poop in the shower, I could probably mush it down the drain. You know what I mean? Like, that overthinking. Now you could say, well, women are overly emotional, blah blah blah. Women and men are different creatures.
Uh-huh.
Not one better than the other, just different. and think about things differently. But I don't think in this example that is what is applicable. I think too many times, because of past traumas, we
Mm-hmm.
do this thing where we attribute malice
Mm.
where either ignorance or nothing exists,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
So that's where overthinking can kill us. It's just like somebody cuts you off in traffic and you like, you motherfucker, and you're screaming at them and everything. You did that on purpose. You know what? You have no idea what's going on. Yeah, the person might have been an asshole.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've been an asshole before. All right. Um, but it could be that he just got a call and his wife is in the hospital, dude.
Right. Right.
He's not paying attention to you. 99% of the time, when we think people are thinking about us, they're not.
Mm-hmm.
Just be wary of that 1%. Keep your head on a swivel. But outside of that, guess what? It's not all about you.
No, it's not.
It's so funny. I just last week had this conversation with one of my classes. We were
Mm-hmm.
talking about this very thing and how people are always, like, oh, they must be thinking this, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked around to each of my students and I would ask them something like, hey, when you were getting up this morning, I said, did you have breakfast? And they're like, yeah, what'd you make? Oh, I made eggs. I said, when you were cooking your eggs, I said, were you worried about the electric bill that I've got to pay this month? And
No.
they looked at me like, what? I'm like, exactly, dude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm focused on it. You're not. You're focused
Yeah.
on your eggs.
Mm-hmm.
It's that overthinking that it just kills us. Be aware of your environment. Is again, to keep your head on a swivel. It's a military thing.
Mm-hmm.
Be aware of things around you, but don't be fixated on imaginary jabberwockies that are out there in the world.
Exactly.
Okay, and this is coming from conspiracy theorists.
All right. Point should be taken, hopefully. Um, so the next one I have here is resentment on our past, present, and future. And this is talking about the people who sabotage us. Uh, they're desperate to be more like you. What are your thoughts on that?
Desperate to be more like. Okay, so are we conflating a couple things? Because the past, present, future thing, and people sabotaging us because they're trying to be more like.
Okay, so basically, let's say you have a decent life,
Mhm,
maybe like someone else would like to have,
mhm.
and they see your potential and you're headed that direction. Um, so they're kind of like they want that life, but it's not their life, and because it's your life, they are in the mindset that they want to kind of do something to interfere with your progress.
Hmm. Well, I understand, the psychology of it. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But my
Mm-hmm.
response to them would be want your own life.
Yeah, absolutely. You
Want your
know.
life. Want to, I have my life because I chose to follow certain pathways,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not finished. I mean, we're not guaranteed tomorrow, but as far as I know, my trajectory, I have certain things that I hope to attain.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, but for somebody to actively and it's so funny because if they're trying to sabotage your life because they want what you have and it's irking them, it's like if you spent the same amount of energy focusing on fixing your shit,
Mm-hmm.
guess what? And the other thing too is, and you said past, present, future, leading into this thing.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most difficult things to wrestle with, I think, as humans, is that in staying away from quantum theory and that the past, present, future all live in the same time, blah blah blah, and
Mm-hmm.
tension takes us. Okay, that's not even part of the discussion right now. But the past is depression, the future is anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't exist.
Boom.
The future is a supposition. The past is a memory. The only thing we physically have that we can focus on is this. What's happening right now? It's the warrior spirit. Every breath that comes in and goes out, you have to live each breath, and you have to be present, and you have to be here, because that's what we know for a fact that we have, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think one of the things, and it does touch on this whole, thing of, I'm jealous and I'm going to try to sabotage it. It's like, actually, if you just live in the present and deal with what you've got going on in your life, you're not going to be focusing on me,
Right.
my life, or trying to sabotage it, because you're going to be living the now with you.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think if we can kind of get a grasp on that concept, because if you hate what I have and you want it for yourself and you don't have it, that's living in a future and another reality and everything else that just doesn't exist. So you have to focus on the present and focus on yourself.
Boom. Man, you couldn't answer that any better, Sean. And I really like how you analyze the future anxiety and the past depression. I've heard a lot of professional people try to explain things, but that right there should get you an Oscar.
Nice.
That was just incredible. What you got?
No, I was gonna say I could use a new doorstop, so yeah, I'll take an Oscar.
Oh man, that's awesome. So wrapping it up, who can sabotage? We got friends, we got family, we got coworkers, we got business colleagues, exes, uh,
Mm.
baby mama drama. Pick one.
Oh, good Lord. Well, you could pick any of them, and it,
Mhm.
it it would be correct for the most part.
Mhm.
But in the end, the reality of it is, and I still struggle, dude. I have all this guru knowledge and everything. I still struggle with this shit on the daily. I
Mhm.
don't care how many degrees I get, whatever. I'm human. I am
Mhm.
still trying to always raise the level of the water in my harbor. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, yes, those people can impact your life, um, until you get a grasp on how you respond. And I choose that word very carefully,
Mhm.
because people use react a lot. Reacting is emotional. Reacting is something where you just go back with no thought, all emotion, and it just blah, blah, blah,
Mm.
right?
Uh-huh.
But if you respond to things, response is calculated.
Yeah.
Response means there's thought, response means control. And again, to go back to Bruce Lee, he said anybody that can remain calm in an emergency literally has superhuman abilities. Like,
Mm.
that is a superpower. So baby mama drama, they can come at you. Bosses with their craziness can come at you.
Mhm.
But if you remain and respond in a cool, calm, and collected way, and all those things, you still feel emotions and everything else. But if you don't allow others' insanities to create chaos in your world, then one, it will frustrate the hell out of them, because I guarantee you, like baby mamas, if they're
Woo.
just, yeah, if they're screaming, losing their minds, and you're just like, okay, all right, well, if that's how you feel, you want to see something that's going to put a fire under them and make them even
Mhm.
more crazy, that'll
Mhm.
do it.
Yeah.
If you have a coworker that's trying to get your goat, if you have a boss who's trying to punch down and make you feel less, and you're just like, okay, well, we'll talk about that, I guess, when we need to. It drives people batty. They can't
It,
handle it.
it does, and I got a perfect example of that, and it's a personal one.
Mm,
I was going through some things with, I guess you could say, they would fall under ex and baby mama drama.
Mhm.
Uh, I had an attorney tell me the best advice in the world, and when he said it, I thought he was absolutely insane. Uh, he said, "When you respond to someone, you're still emotionally tied, and when they're doing all these crazy things to you, they're emotionally tied to you. But if you can find the strength to not respond to any of those things, they know they're just going to trigger a response,
Mhm.
because they know you don't respond to it, and it's going to be difficult the first time, almost impossible. But once you do it and
Mhm.
continue to do it, it gets easier to do it. And that person, like you said, they go crazy, they lose it, because they cannot control you anymore or affect you emotionally. And it just like, it kills them.
Yeah.
It kills them. So he told me, he said, try it once. And then when you see the response, you'll know exactly what I'm saying. He said, right now, I know I'm sounding crazy, but try it once. And I did it, and it blew me away. But he was
Mhm.
right. And that was the beginning of the rest of my life.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
I
man.
love it. I love it. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's funny because I've had some exes where and ex-wife
Hmm.
where the fighting back and forth and back and forth, and you finally make that choice, and they'll send you those text messages that just scroll, and you're just going like this, going, my God, when
Yeah.
did you have time? Or your thumbs, they got to be bleeding, right?
No kidding.
Um, but it's just eventually they just tire out, just like a toddler who is throwing a fit. Eventually, they're sweaty, lying on the floor, and just you know you don't pay. It's just like advertising. You don't pay attention to it; it goes away,
Yeah,
right? And
absolutely.
again, it's all about that choice, right?
Hmm.
And going circling back to what was said in the beginning of the cast here. It's that choice of negativity or positivity. If
There
I
it is.
choose for my focuses to be positive in nature, if somebody's coming at me with these mile long texts, I'm just like, all right, and you move on to whatever it is.
Hmm.
Yeah, like you said, their reaction, it is. You talk about winning an Oscar. They lose their minds. You're just like, my goodness, this is how you live, huh? Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
right. So yeah, Sean, that's all I got for today, man. It's been a great episode. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
It was a
Uh,
blast, man. I appreciate you.
yeah, thanks for everybody tuning in. I see you. We appreciate all the support today, yesterday, and tomorrow. Uh, Tune in to Sean's new show, Blurred Lines, and help me with the other show you got there, Sean. It's a comedy.
It's Sean Shank Redemption
Yes,
podcast.
thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I drew a blank there. Sorry, Sean
That's
Shank
cool.
Redemption, and you'll see both of us on what's the new one we got with
Oh,
two Bobs.
singed
Yeah,
eyes.
thank
Yeah.
you. I'm drawing blanks, man. It's still early.
Yeah. It's like 2 o'clock
Singe,
in the morning.
yeah, Singe eye sockets, and then you can catch me on That's Life in the Future, and what's going on every Saturday morning or afternoon, depending on how things work out. So once again, thank you, Sean Shank, for popping in at the last minute. Really appreciate you, and definitely if you can come back again later, we would definitely be happy to have you. Uh, so that's all we got, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, Once again, thank you so much, and that's life. We'll see you next time.